Welcome back, guys, to Pirate Talk Radio. This is episode 127. I hope you are doing well. We have a special treat for this week. I'm actually going to be sitting down and talking with Captain Logun of the Keelhauled Podcast. And though I have cut, chopped, and edited the interview down to make sure that, you know, it's the content to give to you guys. But since he invited me to his podcast, there's definitely some conversation that happens a little bit before I break into this episode, and there's some conversation after. I'm not sure what Logan's going to leave in and what he's going to take out in his editing process, but if you want to go check out that, and I strongly encourage checking out the Keelhauled Podcast every single week. He does a fantastic job covering Sea of Thieves news. I know he does other podcasts for Xbox games and stuff like that, but definitely check it out. Been a long time friend of mine. We've went to Sea of Thieves Fest together and Fest of Legends together, and just an absolutely outstanding person. So make sure you go over and check out his version, as well as I'm sure there's some added bits that you'll get on that version from this one. But before we get into it, since this is going to be quite a long episode, probably very close to, if not after editing, over 2 hours. So brace yourself. This might be a multi-part listen for you guys. But there was a lot of great conversation about the PS5 launch and the history or the future of Sea of Thieves as him and I see it. But before we get into it, I want to make sure we take the time to thank the amazing, the glorious, the notorious patrons of Pirate Talk Radio. We have Skamelt 666, Lane, iGeffus, L Cute, James, Big Bad Pad, and Regis Stella. Thank you for your continued support of my content and for Pirate Talk Radio. I appreciate it very, very much. And if you all would like to get involved with the patron, go over to patreon.com/DavrimTV, and there's a variety of different tier levels that you can subscribe to each month, starting as low as $1, and all that money goes directly back into the show for hosting on the podcast, for equipment break fix and stuff like that. So all the support is greatly appreciated. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Captain Logun and the Keelhauled Podcast.
So getting into the beginning of it, we did get an announcement that, of course, pre-orders are going live for the PlayStation 5 on April 30th. There's going to be 3 editions with this. There's going to be a standard edition, which is, funny enough, was what I expected for the pricing. A deluxe edition that has some pre-order bonuses or some actual content in there, not including the pre-order bonuses, and then a premium edition. I figured these were going to be coming in at like $40 when they announced it was going to be coming to Sea of Thieves or on PlayStation 5. I was like, okay, well, normally the game's like $40 right now. It's not the full 60 that it used to be, and I doubt they can really justify charging 70 for this. So if I had to guess, it would probably go to 40 for the baseline MSRP, and then we would probably see sales in like 6 to 8 weeks or 6 to 8 months for like $30, and then probably like a year or so it'd probably drop down to like 20 where we typically see it on like Steam or Xbox. But what did you think of first off the pricing and also them releasing different versions of Sea of Thieves?
So I kind of anticipated the different versions just because I remember when Steam launched and they tried to do some different things there. They always have some sort of deal going on in the Microsoft store. So I kind of had a feeling that they were going to do something like that. Now, what I kind of was looking at is more, what do you get for the $10 additional deluxe and then again, based on classic, $10 additional premium? What were those cosmetics you get? And some of them, like the deluxe ones, I thought were okay. I don't know if for me personally, if I was getting into Sea of Thieves, knowing the cosmetics that are in the game already, I don't know if what you get in the deluxe would constitute $10. Premium, you get a whole ship set. So that one plus a costume plus a pet. Like the premium, that $20, I guess, You get, I would say maybe your money's worth. But the deluxe I wasn't a fan of, right? You get that ocean crawler set. It's kind of like, ugh, it's the ocean crawler set to begin with. Like, let's keep encouraging that, right? And then you get like a figurehead sails and a blunderbuss and some gold. Like, to me, that was, I know probably if you break down the actual dollars that they're charging in the Emporium and add it, you're probably getting a good deal, money for money. It just, for me, it wasn't enticing. The premium's a little bit more enticing at that $60 value of what you get. That was just my opinion. But definitely seeing the 3 tiers, I saw them. I kind of anticipated that, but again, value in that middle tier was a little off for me.
Interesting. Yeah, it's hard to really justify it when you look at the Crab Daddy set, and you're getting a fair amount. You're getting the pistol, the shovel, the hat, the jacket, the dress, the trousers, and the hook on top of like the 10,000 gold. So there is a lot that you're getting with that. But for $10, the figurehead is the collector's edition of the the Thunderous Fury, which, if I recall, is roughly about $8 in the Pirate Emporium store. So that would eat a good chunk if you were to buy it alone. But it is really weird that they just give you that figurehead. Like, why that figurehead? Instead of one of the other one.
That figurehead and the sails didn't make sense to me. And the other thing, why the ocean crawler, I know you get a lot with that, right? You mentioned the full outfit and the weapons. But the issue I had with the ocean crawler is that is all gold purchased, right? That is something that you can purchase with your gold in the game. So there's no real, in my mind, financial value tied to that. Now, the Shrouded Ghost blunderbuss is one of my favorite looking blunderbusses, and I believe that was tied to a limited time event, if I remember right. I think it wasn't a plunder pass. I don't believe. I believe that was like one of the limited time like mega events they did. Because it had some other ship seats. Now that is one of my favorite blunderbusses. So I really liked that one. But yeah, I'm with you. I don't understand why they picked the Thunderous Fury. That set did not scream pirate to me at all. It was like the Disney Hercules, leading up to the Pirates of the Caribbean when that was released. It was like the Disney Hercules set, and yeah, that one doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I'm not sure why they went with that. But if you take into account the figurehead and the sails, that's roughly about $14 worth of money from the Pirate Emporium. And I did get a chance to Google it while you were talking. And yes, you're right. This was previously earned in season 2 by purchasing the Plunder Pass or purchased from the Pirate Emporium. So there is definitely, it's about $2.50 worth of ancient coin. So I would say as far as like the deluxe edition, the cost increase that you're getting for that, if you don't have those items and you wanted to get them and you were planning on buying it for other stuff, the value to me is there. But I do think that you should have, instead of the ocean crawler set, I would have preferred if they'd given I don't know, the Thunderous Fury costume. I think that would have been a better choice to pair along with this, because it is a little bit of a mismatch as to what you're getting. The premium edition here, the premium edition feels like a more well-rounded, thought out set that has like the actual items for this. This is the one that's $60 MSRP. And it comes with not only a plunder pass for season 12, which I do have to address one bit, that a lot of companies are starting to move towards these token-based systems to redeem seasonal passes. Diablo 4, Suicide Squad, Halo. You get these little like digital tokens that are on your account, and you can redeem whatever season you want. So if you buy into the game and you get an included season pass with it, you would get this token. You don't necessarily have to use it on the first season one. for these games. You can save it for like season 2 or season 3 or season 4. You can save it to whatever season is the one that really kind of interests you. The Plunder Pass, not quite that way, and I think that would be a positive change for Sea of Thieves to go if you were to buy into like a premium pass to start moving towards a token-based system. I think that's the better way to go. Let people choose which season is the one that's most appealing to them, especially if they get the premium edition, knowing that season 12 Plunder Pass is going to have content in it, but we don't know what that Plunder Pass looks like, and that cosmetic set does not interest you in the slightest. It would be like, okay, well, I didn't really want that season Plunder Pass.
Yeah. And one thing, and I might have missed this. If you just buy the premium, do you get the season 12 Plunder Pass, or is that only with the pre-order of the premium? Because I know they mentioned that was a pre-order bonus. I don't remember if that was just a base, like after the pre-orders are over, if I choose to buy premium, then do I still get the Plunder Pass? I might have confused that when I was writing this down.
Ooh, it's so the wording on this says that the Sea of Thieves Premium Edition also includes the Season 12 Plunder Pass, opening up further avenues for earnable rewards and stuff. They actually don't address if this is something that's just for pre-order, which now that I think about it, in 6 months when season 13 hits, this is going to be kind of rough. Yeah, and I remember when they were, who was it? It was McMurtry was talking about that in the Sea of Thieves news segment, because when I wrote down the classic deluxe premium, I actually went to the PlayStation store when I started to write this down, and then also used the video. But I remember him specifically calling out the pre-order bonuses, which you do get some pretty cool stuff if you pre-order these things. One specifically that I really like is that Ruby Viper weapon set. But I do remember them saying the pre-order of premium gets you season 12. Yeah, so and 5 days early access. So I'm curious where that lines up. If you don't pre-order, but you buy it later, I wonder if where that lines up. So the legal info on the PlayStation Store does show that it is part of the pre-order portion of it. It has later on, in addition to the pre-order, the information about the ocean crawler stuff that you'll get, the Thunder's Fury stuff, but also the Dark Warsmith stuff. So for those that are pre-ordering the premium edition, you're going to be getting access to the Warsmith hull, figurehead, flag, wheel, cannons, capstan, cannon flare, basically the full Warsmith ship set, as well as the Dark Warsmith costume and the maniacal diabolical dog pet for that as well. That, in my mind, along with all of the stuff that you get from the deluxe version, is definitely worth its weight in the $20 to ancient coins. Yes, yeah. In my opinion, the Dark Warsmith ship set was one of the best ship sets. It's very piratey. It's very dark. It's very, skulls and gold and that regal, evil pirate look. So I think this was a perfect selection. Obviously, the Dark Warsmith costume turns you into that skeleton without actually having to do the hourglass stuff. So, this, I agree, is definitely worth that $20 additional from the classic. This is pirate. This screams value to me. If I was a fan of pirate games and wanted to dive into Sea of Thieves, this is where I would land, is that premium. Yeah. The one thing that I did want to jump into as well too is you brought up the pre-order stuff for any of the editions. Pre-ordering any of the PlayStation versions will grant you access to the Ruby Viper weapon set, which, if I recall, this is essentially them taking the Midnight Blunderbuss. It's the Obsidian set. The Obsidian set, the Ebon Flintlock, the Obsidian Sword, and the Obsidian Eye of Reach, and reskinning these as a black and red version. Yeah, and to be clear, I think PlayStation fans are getting a really good deal with this, because I think if you take into consideration back in 2018, to be able to get the Midnight Blunderbuss, which a lot of people don't have, you had to purchase a Xbox 2 terabyte hard drive.
Mm-hmm.
To get the they aren't doing a ferryman set or a black sea dog set, which I think is very interesting. But they are allowing the weapons to come. The flintlock pistol itself was something that had to be like was it a pre-order bonus? I don't think it was a pre-order bonus. I think it was part of like early streams. They had like a couple streams where you could watch to get it. And then eventually they ended up like letting people get it in other ways. But it was really hard to get a hold of at the start of the game. So pre-ordering it and already just getting one of these iron sight flintlocks, I think is exceptionally valuable. Just as far as the actual game goes. But you also get the parakeet, which is the Scarlet Storm parakeet, which I think is a new.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one before. Yeah.
And you also get the Kraken and the Sea Dog outfits for the parakeet, which, can I just say, the outfits for pets have gone by the wayside.
Yep.
Honestly, like they're missing out on that.
You can totally, like, I know I'm not a fan of pets. I think pets have a place in this game because people like to role play with them. People like to hold them and play with them. I get it. I'm not a fan of them, but I understand why they're in the game and I understand why people like them. But those pets add so much individuality, and like you make that pet your own, not only having its name, but then also being able to pick some sort of outfit for it. So, and they're always done well, right? They take those player costumes, the Kraken, the banana set, whatever it is, and they really do a great job of manipulating them for the pet. And you can like, oh, look, I match my pet. They do really cool stuff.
Yeah.
Not my thing, but I definitely see why players like them, and definitely, to your point, something that's very, very, it's just not looked at, right?
Yeah. Hopefully something that'll get added to in the future. You also get early access to the game with the premium edition. You get 5 days early access, so it's launching on April 30th. So 5 days from that would be the 25th. You'll be able to start playing Sea of Thieves on PlayStation. I wanted to kind of toss it to you and see, with the pre-orders, a lot of folks seem very upset that PlayStation fans are getting these weapon sets and the parakeet, but also that this is stuff that Xbox fans want. And we saw on a recent Windows Central article, I saw a couple of tweets out from some reporters that Sea of Thieves is like one of the highest pre-ordered games for PlayStation right now. And I wanted to check and see, do you think that's because Xbox fans are really trying to get, like, doing whatever they can to get these cosmetics? Or do you think that this is actually like PlayStation fans interested in buying the game?
So I think it's a little bit of both, right? I would like to, in my heart of hearts, believe that this is PlayStation fans. Like maybe they've played it on PC, maybe they played it on Steam, maybe they have Xbox Game Pass because they're just a console lover, and they've played Sea of Thieves before. But PlayStation is their preferred console, and now they have that opportunity. In my heart of hearts, that's what I hope for. But knowing Sea of Thieves, knowing the players, and knowing when there's a cool cosmetic that's exclusive to something, maybe be the Oreo sales that they did or something like that, players are going to figure out a way how they're going to get those, because Sea of Thieves is all about cosmetics, as you well know. So being able to have those in your trunk, whether you're a completionist or you just like the look of them, there is going to be a chunk of those pre-orders, and I hope it's not a majority, but it is what it is. It brings money to the studio, that are going to be those Xbox players, those Steam players who just want those cosmetics. I mean, I can tell you right now, I want the Ruby Viper weapon set. Period. End of story. I want that thing.
Yeah. It's I plan on buying it. I know a few people are planning on buying it. There are 2 items that are coming as a result of actually playing in the I believe it's the beta that you get access to these items. I believe, I'm trying to find the name in my notes, but it's the adventurer set, or the Brave Vanguard sales.
Yeah. I heard that yesterday, that there was a recolor of the Brave Vanguard sales.
Yeah, there's the let me see if I can pull it up real quick. But it's effectively they're going to be really, I actually really like them. So they're the cream or the Viper set that we're getting with the redone Obsidian stuff is all red and black. The set that we're getting these black, red and black Brave Vanguard sales are coming in. You get a title for jumping into the pre-order. I actually really like these. I think they're obviously a lot more like edgy than what we have as far as like the Brave Vanguard. The Brave Vanguard is unique in that it feels very natural to the world, as opposed to we're just going to go complete goth emo edgelord on this. But that's something that I think a lot of people are kind of upset about when it comes to these cosmetics, is that that something is as rare as the Brave Vanguard sales, which were given for folks that signed up for forums back before December 2018. We're able to get the Brave Vanguard title as well as the sales. This is PlayStation's version of this. So if you pre-order, you get access to the beta, and if you jump into the beta, then you get the sales and the title.
Yeah, and here's the thing, and you and I have had multiple conversations about the recolors and the re-releasing of rare cosmetics, right? We've talked at length. And here's the thing. I don't like it. I don't like when they re-release a rare cosmetic from the past, or they add it to Twitch drops, or they add it to something like that. I'm really not a fan of that. And the Vanguard sale specifically, the Brave Vanguard, I mean, that was a very special thing. Just like the Black Dog set, just like those were very special. You know, it's like when they, if I remember right, didn't they recolor? Yeah, they've recolored it a couple times, I believe. The Year One Pirate Legend stuff, like they recolored that, and I know that caused a lot of frustrations from people. And at this point, 6 years in, Rare's trying to get players into the game. If that means recoloring some legendary item, they're not releasing the original item, but if they're recoloring it, I kind of have little less of an issue with it. But if they were to re-release, let's say you pre-order on PlayStation and you get Year One Pirate Legend stuff, people would lose their mind on that. Understandably so. They worked hard for that stuff, and these folks just pre-ordered it. When they recolor it, I can see the heartburn, but at the end of the day, it isn't the original. It is a recolor, but I definitely understand where people are coming from and are frustrated.
Yeah. I did find out the name of it. It's the Dauntless Adventurer title and Dauntless Adventurer sales.
Okay.
So yeah, and honestly, like, and we're kind of talking about like the details on this. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. This is what Rare wanted to do back in 2018. They had a really good marketing push for the game, but the trouble with Sea of Thieves was that it was coming in with just the base game. It didn't have nearly as much refinement as they did. All the things that they promised back in like 2017 during like the deep dive into what Sea of Thieves was going to do post launch was all the captaincy and pets and guilds. Like, they had all these ideas, they had all these dreams about tall tales and stuff like that, that they wanted to bring to the game after they launched, because launching was like the big part of what they needed. And at a certain point, Microsoft has to say, hey, you've been working on this game for so long, we need you to get launched, and we're going to tie it into Game Pass. You're going to be day one Game Pass for Game Pass and Game Pass Ultimate with cross-buy. So we need you to be one of the flagship titles for that launch, besides like State of Decay and like Crackdown. So this PlayStation launch feels like what they would have loved Sea of Thieves to have been in 2018.
Yeah, and they have to generate excitement, right? They have to.
Yeah.
It's been out for 6 years on Xbox and PC, and it's been out for a bit on Steam. But again, Steam was just let's be honest, it would re-release on PC. You could already play it on PC at that point. This is a whole new platform. potentially a whole new group of gamers that's never touched Sea of Thieves. Why? They didn't have an Xbox, they don't have a PC. They only were able to afford, or maybe they only like PlayStation. They have to do special things to get these players to play because they want them to play. It's a great game. We love the game. There's issues with the game, but to get new players into the game, you really got to hype it up, right? Because you all obviously have the console wars out there. PlayStation better than Xbox, Xbox better than PC. You know, those console wars still exist, even though they're less. They still exist. Sea of Thieves has to hype it up. We're coming from Xbox. We have this cool game that you can't experience in any other game. And if you play it, if you pre-order it, we're going to give you this really cool stuff so you can look different than anyone who's ever played it, right? So, like, I understand the hype. I understand the frustration. But on their business model, their job right now is to get as many PlayStation players in that sea as possible.
I'm kind of curious to get your opinion on this. So PlayStation is going to have a beta. It's going to be running from the 12th to the 15th of April. And that's when you'll be able to log in to play during that to be able to get these Dauntless Adventurer sales and title. This is a 6-year-old game. And Sony has a deal with Microsoft for Azure server access. So I'm really I'm really struggling to understand why Sony or why PlayStation needs to have a beta. Like, this isn't a beta, really. Like, it's a beta, I guess, in the sense that this is a new version of the game for PlayStation. But do you think this is actually warranted, or do you think that this is like a marketing thing, or like why are we getting a beta for a game that's already been out for 6 years?
So part of me, for most games, let's take like a Destiny, if they were to go on the Switch or something, you know, I would definitely agree with you. Why do we need a beta, right? So I think on one hand, you're 100% correct. It's a PR thing. How do we get people to pre-order? How do we get that value in there? Because I've never been a fan of paying for early access. I've never been a fan of that, even though I know it's an industry standard. I know that. But again, let's get people on closed beta. Now, let's go to the Davrim side of criticizing things. Sea of Thieves has had a long history of bad updates and bad releases where things come out and they don't work right. So I'm glad that they're doing a closed beta, because if these PlayStation folks are like, oh, we finally get our hands on Sea of Thieves, like, yes, and then they log in and they're laggy, they're disconnecting, they're falling through the world, that kind of stuff, immediately turned off, immediately wanting a refund, whatever the case may be. So I'm glad they're doing a closed beta. In general, I think you're right. It's a marketing campaign to get the pre-order bonuses, but based on the history, I think Sea of Thieves is actually making the right decision. Now, what impacts can they make if they're doing it on the 15th of April to whatever, in that 1 week time frame, maybe a week and a half time frame before release? If something major is broken on the PlayStation side, what actual impact can they make before April 30th? That is what I wonder. What could they change if something is horribly broken?
Yeah, that's kind of what leads me to feel like this is more of a marketing thing, because I can't imagine that there's anything that they haven't already, because they've already stated in articles, and we may actually pull up some of the articles to address this, but Joe Neate and Mike Chapman have been talking to reporters, and articles have already stated that they have been playing this on PlayStation. Like, they are playing Sea of Thieves on PlayStations, and it's not just like local, because it's obviously they have to be able to play the game with other people to test it on PlayStation servers. So effectively, like, these servers have been running, and we know that the game has been they've been working on this port for the last year, which really kind of rubs the wrong way when you think about what 2023 brought us, right? Do you want to get into that?
Yeah, let's dive into that, because one thing that my very first note from the Eurogamer article that you sent me is from Joe Neate. We have been testing internally. That bothers me. I'm glad they're testing internally, right? I'm glad they're testing internally. But one of the things that I have been calling out and screaming at the top of my lungs forever is, what does your testing internally mean? Because when you have done testing on your patches and stuff in the past, we get bucket reg comes back. We get food reg comes back. We get harpoons aren't accessible. You access the map table and all of a sudden glitch the entire server. So sure, that's great that you've been testing it internally, but based on your history, what does internal testing mean? How much time is that? How many people are doing it? What are they doing? Because it doesn't line up with some of the experiences players have had in the past when things have been tested and then released.
Yeah. It's concerning. And to be honest, and you and I both come from a World of Warcraft background, and I think it's fair to say that of the communities, World of Warcraft can definitely be very reactionary to a lot of the choices that get made by the World of Warcraft team. And I think that the World of Warcraft team understands that and tends to think about what they do and be very, very open to working with the community on a lot of the goals that the World of Warcraft team has. They put that content out into a public test realms for testing, for broad access, because the amount of analytical data that you can get from millions of people playing your beta means a lot more when you're a year out from playing an expansion. Yes. And they'll hold a lot of stuff back that they want to be like special story stuff or like boss things that they need to fine tune that stuff, but they usually rely on a few top guilds to be able to refine that kind of content, and they have the manpower to be able to do stuff like that. Sea of Thieves in this instance is a studio roughly 200 to 300 people deep. It's not a guarantee that all of them have PlayStation 5s, and I doubt that the studio bought PlayStation 5s for everyone that wanted to test this out. We know that they've got at least 2 or 3 support studios at this point helping with things, but we don't know to what extent. But yeah, Joe says testing internally, and that he says, quote, "We've been testing internally and we're getting into a quote unquote take home stage where we're playing at home with our little hands on PlayStation controllers and going on. This is insane, but how do we pair react or no, but how did the pair, no, is that part of the quote? I can't tell.
Some of the quotes in this was very rough to read.
Yeah, the quotes are not very broken up very well, unfortunately. But to get to the gist of it, they've been talking about the fact that they've been testing this at home as well as internally at the studio. And to get to the point that I was trying to make before I wandered off into the quote thing, this would be nice if the beta had come at the 6th anniversary. If they had said, we're opening up pre-orders at the beginning of March. On March 20th, we're going to have an announcement for the stuff coming for the rest of the year. And as a result, PlayStation users who pre-ordered can now jump in for a 2-week beta. And they get 2 weeks to play the game, see if or even if it's just like a week. I think like a week would be fine. When Sea of Thieves was coming out, we had a weekend worth of time during the end of January, and then we had subsequent weekend stress tests throughout February and into March. Everyone was really testing out that stuff. Like, they were getting a lot of work. So the fact that they are confident enough to think that, 1 3-day period in April, a week before the pre-order goes live, or the pre-orders go live on the 25th for those that got the premium edition, that says to me that they're feeling comfortable with it. But I don't trust that is going to be enough to resolve any issues, especially when currently right now in March, Xbox has had a lot of issues with crashes. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to know why, but that's concerning as well.
And like, I go back to season 11, right? Season 11, big hype. Obviously, they're confident in the release. Now that I've actually, like my last episode talked about things I found on the insider forums before Season 11 came out, things I've seen on YouTube and the public spaces since Season 11 came out, they were confident in Season 11. And they had exploits. They had the map bug issue, the table where it locks up the entire server. They were confident in Season 11. And the first, 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks of Season 11 was a dumpster fire, and it slowly was put out. Thankfully, they had quick response times this time. But like Season 11's launch was a dumpster fire. But they were confident in it. So that's why I get nervous when they're talking about we've been testing it for a while. We feel confident in this. I just am concerned because of the amount of time. To your point, if they would have done it in the 6th anniversary event, give those folks 2 weeks to test it, then they have more time to make adjustments. If they're waiting until mid-April, they have 0 time to make adjustments. Or what do? Do you push the date, or do you push it half-baked? I'm more concerned with half-baked, but I'm also concerned if you push it, people are going to be irritated. Like they put themselves in a very small timetable to really upset people.
Yeah. And if Helldivers is any example of what can happen to a game, Helldivers right now is amazingly popular. TikTok and the satirical context of the game have done wonders for Arrowhead Studios. They have been plagued with server issues. It was almost impossible for PlayStation users to actually play the game. So for whatever reason, Steam players had easier time getting into the game for the first 3 weeks of that launch. And they're that's them getting their first game off the floor. And we saw this in 2018 with Sea of Thieves as well too. But one of the things that kept coming across to me that I didn't anticipate was that PlayStation users were very unhappy with Helldivers too, because they bought a game, granted $40, not a full $70 game, but a $40 multiplayer game that they could not play. And seeing that just in the last month, and seeing how they reacted, that it causes for concern. As a Sea of Thieves, fan, I am concerned that there's a little too much posturing by the higher ups right now.
Yes,
showing that this is going to be, because they're doing a lot of interviews right now. None with Sea of Thieves creators. It's all been media. And that's usually a marketing thing. That's usually like hey, we need Mike Chapman and Joe Neate to go out and talk up the game. And that's easy for them to do because they've been doing it for years. I don't know if the reality of what's going to happen is going to land as well as they propose it will. I'm sure it'll land fine. But I do have concerns that they aren't buffering themselves well enough given their history.
I mean, let's look at this. So this was a list before you asked me to sit down with you. This was a list of things that I've experienced since they did the maintenance windows multiple times at the beginning of the season, as you well know. Here is a list of just some what I would consider major issues which have still not been resolved. That were some of them have been resolved in certain times. Silent boarding. Imagine a new player coming into this game and silent boarding is one of the first things they experience. It's horrible for veteran players. That was fixed for a while. It's an issue again. You can't interact with harpoons or map. Now, to the point here, I believe they mentioned that that's supposed to be fixed in the March update. However, the supplies from the shipwright was also supposed to be fixed in the last update and is still not resolved. Seafort loop dupe. We just on the stream yesterday found a Seafort that had 7 Seafort keys there when we arrived. People are still duping. It's still an issue. We found an issue yesterday where on some of kind of the aging servers, if you pick something up in the water, then drop it back in the water, poof, it's gone. It's just gone. You can't find it. It disappeared from the game. I don't know if it goes to the bottom of the ocean. I don't know. It's gone. But imagine you do your first skeletal sloop as a new player. Loot drops in the water. You go and pick it up, and then you drop it, and it's gone. Your entire feeling of reward from that battle just disappears. Quick swapping, still in the game. Imagine a new player coming in and seeing someone who can fire basically 2 shots instantaneously at you. And you're like, well, how am I supposed to do this, right? So that's just a short list of issues that are still in the game plaguing veteran and active players, and we're going into a PlayStation with a whole bunch potentially of new players that are going to be experiencing these frustrations for the first time, and it's going to be a make or break. Are you going to stay or are you going to leave? And we need these players to stay.
One of the interesting things that I wanted to bring up with regard to the pre-order stuff, because I'm not trying to like gloss over what you talked about, but I think you succinctly put it well, that there are already issues in the game that we still need to get addressed. On top of that, we found out that from the Sea of Thieves news article or news video that the GDK or the game developer kit update that came a couple weeks ago didn't work, or something is wrong with it. We don't know the details, but effectively what it's going to do is come the 14th of March, which is when we're getting our Emporium update as well as the update to the game for the month. We are all going to, and we don't know for sure, but I'm going to warn you and tell you, just expect this. We're all going to have to re-download Sea of Thieves on Windows, PC, and Xbox.
That's my plan already, because that bit me last time. That bit me. I went to stream. I did the update. It said update successful. Log in, got a beard that said my game wasn't updated. And I had to uninstall and reinstall, what is it, 100 gigs at this point, I think, pretty close to it. So my plan is when that update hits, I'm uninstalling the game and I'm installing. I'm not going to take any chances, because that is a very frustrating experience. Yeah.
And unfortunately for a lot of folks, not everyone has the unlimited bandwidth. Oh. I pay for unlimited bandwidth because I expect to be updating and installing a lot of large games on a regular basis, on top of how much my wife and myself like to watch TV shows and stream content. We are very much of the digital era, and I am not going to pay an exorbitant amount of price just to deal with overages. So I will pay whatever I need to get unlimited bandwidth, but that is a luxury.
Yes.
And to have another one of these things within a month of actually having to re-download the entire game, it's like it's one of those things that's frustrating, because they had one opportunity to get it right, and they already should have disclosed, like, expect to re-download or expect to download the entire game with this update. It is a very big update for the game, and we expect that it will probably be a fresh install. That's what the messaging should have been from the get-go. They are once again saying, expect a big download. I am once again saying, this is going to be a full reinstall for Windows and Xbox. Just expect that.
It really hurts. And I'm glad that they're being a little bit more transparent. I like Drew's delivery on these Sea of Thieves news. I really think he delivers these well, and he's a little bit more transparent and not as secretive as it has been in the past. But man, you're really, like, that poor dude. Every single Sea of Thieves news, I feel like, is being put on the in the firing squad, because he is having to go out there and present this bad news, like, week after week or month after month. He's having to sit there and say, look, guys, we tried, we failed, we're going to try again. And, like, that has to suck, but I give him all the props in the world. He is the person that is really good at presenting that. Like, I feel real good hearing when he talks about their game plan and talks about the future. I feel really good hearing it from him, and I've seen good changes since he's been doing that as far as execution. But again, man, he goes in the front of the firing squad every single time.
He really does. And he's a genuinely nice dude. Like he's just a really nice guy. Doesn't deserve any hate. So hopefully no one is hating on him. And we used to have this. We used to I miss the weekly updates with Joe, where he would break down, like he would be the one as the executive producer delivering the bad news and telling us this is what's wrong. This is how we're planning on making it better. We used to get that. Now it doesn't feel like it as much.
And Blackburn does it for Destiny. Now let's be real clear. Blackburn versus Joe Neate's delivery on this stuff, very different, right? Like
very different.
Blackburn is very cut, dry, to the point. Joe is a little bit more PR guy, marketing guy. Like he can, and same thing with Drew. Like he's direct in certain things, but he presents it very well. But like I personally feel that with the issues the game is continuing to face, that Joe should be the one that sits in that hot seat. I really feel that because he, at the end of the day, has to own what this product is, you know?
Yeah. I don't disagree. I like the approach that Drew has for it because it feels a lot like Joe Blackburn, where effectively you've got the dude sitting there with the to-do list for their sprints and saying like, okay, these 2 weeks we're going to be working on this, these hot item or these hot tickets. Then we've got some tier 2s and then some tier 3s that we can try and get to if we get past the tier 1s. But effectively for the next 2 weeks, we're going to be working on these tier. Like that's what I feel like when Drew's talking is he's like, all right, anti-cheat is coming. We know that anti-cheat is the big thing, so that's what we're focusing on. Also, we know that people are crashing and that people are going to have to reinstall for the GDK issue, but hopefully after that it'll be fine. And then if we get time, we're going to address the sharks. And that feels like an actual production meeting for developers. Like when I sit in on developer meetings, I'm like, yep, that's exactly what we've got. We've got the big ticket item, which is the main thing everyone's kind of focusing on. We've got some tier 2s that we know are crucial, but tier 1s take priority. So that's got to get done first. And then if someone has time or has it in their schedule, they're waiting for something, if they can address or look at this and figure out what's going on, we can set that up to be another tier 2 in the coming future once the other tier 2 problems are taken care of.
Yeah. Can I just say the sharks are annoying, right? That almost instant spawn shark is annoying. But I think of it in a different way. I've got unlimited meat now. I'm just saying, I have unlimited meat. I jump in the water and I got some shark meat now because they're gonna be there. But I understand why it's very annoying for players. I wanted to ask a question when we're talking about Drew and we're talking about, the player experience. I wanted to ask you about a quote that I read in here from Joe Neate, which is he's talking about the PS5 release, and he says the influx of new feedback and perspective of new players is going to be very important. So that one bit me the wrong way. Like that one really kind of put a dagger in my heart because especially recently looking on the insider forums, looking out there on all the different social media spaces, I'm like, Joe, you're getting the feedback. And that quote right there made it feel like, okay, we've heard from you guys for long enough. We've heard it. We want a new fresh perspective. And I'm like, do you think the new fresh perspective is going to be any different? Like that particular quote kind of bit me the wrong way. And I wanted to hear what your thoughts were on that particular approach.
Yeah. Okay. So let me toss out so this is coming again from the Eurogame interview. It says, and having this new influx of players, Neate adds, this new influx of feedback and perspective for the strength and health of Sea of Thieves as an ongoing evolving game. It's just a great moment. It's a really good time for Sea of Thieves. I want to address that because I do think right now is a really good time for Sea of Thieves. I do think that the game is in its best state as a game. I think there's more things that you could do. I think that the systems that they've introduced have really refined a lot of the clunkiness that we've had in the past. To speak to the idea of this being a new influx of feedback and perspective, yes, I don't know that you want that.
Right? That's what I was thinking.
I feel like and a lot of it comes down to the culture of PlayStation fans. I have friends in the PlayStation ecosystem purely, and I have friends that have an expectation of what a AAA experience is supposed to be. And as much as I love Sea of Thieves, and as much as I think it's a good time for Sea of Thieves, I don't know that I would. I mean, as an executive producer, it's always going to get a fresh perspective to see, okay, are PlayStation 5 players giving us feedback that contradicts what our Xbox fans and PC fans are saying, or does it fall in line? Because if it falls in line, that's a big issue, because it shows that the flaws that have been in the game, that have been cried out for from the community, were valid the whole time. Now, if it differs, then it'll be good to see what that perspective and what that feedback is. But at the end of the day, it does kind of feel like, if our opinions and our feedback aren't taken into account, which I do think that they take it into account. When they say they listen, I believe that they listen. I don't know that everything that we say gets made a priority. Agreed. Which I think is the thing that I think a lot of folks expect. And I hope that the perspective and the feedback is more positive than what the Xbox community is offering right now, because I think that they want to have a good launch for PlayStation 5, and I think that they want this to be come across as a very positive thing. But there is going to be a honeymoon period for PlayStation fans that will eventually wear off, and we see that with Xbox. A lot of people really love Sea of Thieves, and then they fall down a little bit from where they came, and then eventually, the outlook is usually pretty positive. I mean, Steam usually has Sea of Thieves up there in some of the better games as far as like games sold, as well as like reviews. The game is in a pretty good state according to Steam users, which I know you like to go off of. The concurrency's not like amazing, but
it's all we got.
It's all we got. We don't really have a good idea on what the monthly active users. If I had to guess, I would probably say that the monthly active users is probably somewhere between 35 and 45,000 for Sea of Thieves, but that's across all platforms.
Yeah, it's obviously much higher on Xbox. It's just it has to be. Like, it just with the value you get in Game Pass, and that it's part of Game Pass and has been part of Game Pass for a long time, there's no question that the Xbox side is far dominant as far as player base than the Steam side. We just don't have access to those numbers.
Yeah. But yeah, it did kind of hurt a little bit, but I'm trying to take it from the idea that our feedback and our perspective is already understood, and they're curious to see if a fresh set of eyes on the game will reflect what our perspective is or differ. And if it differs, it may be positive to the future of the game, because it may actually address things that we have been blind to. But at the same time, we always have new people coming into the game, and there's always questions and people asking stuff about the game and understanding like what works and what doesn't. I think as longtime fans of Sea of Thieves, we see the cracks in the in the veneer, whereas most people probably don't.
Right.
And their experience is just as valuable as ours when it comes to feedback and perspective.
That felt like Pandora's box, right? Like that statement of wanting new player feedback can go, I mean, to your point, can go both ways. And it could be good, but in the same regards, Mr. Neate might not be happy with the Pandora's box that he's about to open with that, because as you say, PlayStation players have a very, very specific thing that they look at when it comes to a AAA game, and it's like, ooh, that was a loaded one right there.
I genuinely hope that the PlayStation 5 launch goes well.
Oh, 100%.
I really want it to, just for the health of the game. Not only because as an Xbox fan, I don't want PlayStation users to be like, look at how crappy this Xbox game is, but also it's like, it doesn't feel good. Like, man, I've dedicated a large portion of my life now to Sea of Thieves, and I genuinely love it, and I genuinely think that the like what we have here is something special. It was like, you know, lightning in a bottle, and they're looking to try and recreate that by doing everything that they did for the Xbox launch, but with the experience of 6 years post launch to be able to do that. So I think they're setting themselves up well. But I think that there's definitely things that haven't been addressed well enough that I think are going to be cause for concern. So I wanted to see if you wanted to jump into the discussion about looking forward.
Yeah, I want to mention one thing. You brought up a really good point, and I've gotten a couple DMs recently from some folks, just real thought out stories of recent experiences they've had with bugs or glitches or exploits, and they've been playing the game since launch or sometime in between, and it's just really just frustrating them and kind of pushing them away from playing. And you hit a really good note. And I'm obviously very critical about things in the game, and I've always been very critical about things in the game. But you mentioned Sea of Thieves is probably in its best state it's ever been. And I cannot agree more with that statement, because let's look at it. Safer Seas, all right, everyone has their opinion, but that is a great tutorial version of the game. It's a tutorial version that this game needed. The maiden voyage, though cool and kind of neat, was not a tutorial for what you're going to expect in this game. Safer Seas is a great thing for the PlayStation launch, getting that out there, making sure it's good, so players have a place to learn the game before they're thrown out there with the Tuckers and the Sweat Lords. 2, the UI changes that they've recently made to the experience, amazing, because you can easily find things now, and the respect for your time as a player. I've called that out a lot with this game. You have to respect your players' times. Life is getting more busy, and you need to have the ability to, if you want to unwind and chill, that I'm playing a game that I can get something out of it, and then I can log off, regardless if I'm playing 30 minutes or I'm playing 8 hours. I need to feel accomplished, and I need to know that the developer is respecting my time. And with diving to events and those type of features that are there, regardless of the bugs and exploits, the things that they've done in the past couple patches to respect your time, get you into the action quickly, and the tutorial mode, I would agree. This game is in its best place. I remember where we were a year ago. I remember where we were 3 years ago. We are in the best place. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, well, this isn't a very good place because of X, Y, and Z. It's been a lot worse. It's been a lot worse. And it's been a lot of tediousness over the years. I can't agree more. The game is in its best state, and we should be very happy with some of these features that have come in. And that's a lot coming from me.
Yeah, I'm glad for where Xbox is, or where Sea of Thieves is right now. I think that we've seen them taking this entire last year, not only for Monkey Island, but obviously now looking in retrospect, they have been working on getting this game in a launch status for Sea of Thieves. And man, this is part of the conflict. As an avid Sea of Thieves fan for many years from an Xbox perspective, I feel like 2023 kind of shafted us.
Yes.
We were, we had a good track record. We were working on, we had a couple hiccups with like captaincy taking a little bit longer. But we had adventures and we had mysteries, and, things were on a cadence that felt sustainable to a degree. And then 2023 hit, and a mandate comes down that PlayStation is we need to expand our library to PlayStation, and Sea of Thieves is the test bed for a lot of stuff, not only Game Pass Ultimate, but cross-buy, just services in general for Xbox. It's a very safe bet. It's a teen-rated game that they can put just about anywhere and have it be relatively successful, just due to the nature of the free content always coming to the game, as well as no power progression for any of the weapons or anything like that. So day one pirates and veterans all have the same power level. So it's a good way for you to always have this evergreen state of the game. But it definitely feels like 2023 was the start of when Rare was mandated to start working on two things. One, a passion project that they knew they'd never get another opportunity to really crank out. And two, a port that was going to end up being a relaunch of the game on a new ecosystem, and what they have to do to get that prepped. And that is guilds, that is refinements to the PvP, anti-cheat, that is the tutorial version of the game with safer seas, that is the voyage system reboot that they needed to do to clean up a lot of the old voyages that just wouldn't make sense. And as we can see with the pre-orders for PlayStation 5, not only are you getting Athena's Fortune as an audiobook, but you're also getting the guide and the OST with the game. They are effectively relaunching this game but just for PlayStation. And it really kind of hurt to think about, like, we had so many dreams and so many like desires of what 2023 was going to be. Like I had hopes that, you know, we were going to be getting the end to Briggsy's story with the Dark Brethren, that we were going to be getting resolution for Tina at Ancient Spire Outpost, that we were going to find out what was going on with DeMarco, that we were going to find Flameheart finally, and Flameheart would return. That all of these things that we had in the works, they just got shut down.
Yeah.
And we we got confirmation in this Eurogame article that you know, there's none of that coming back. And I'm trying to find the quote right now because
I'll let you find that quote, but I did want to get your perspective on that, because I actually asked that question yesterday on stream with the folks that were with me. And I said, we haven't had an adventure since the Briggsy line, right? We didn't get wrapped up with that. We had the Flameheart story where we resurrected him, but we still haven't seen him. And we keep hearing, well, he's still out there. He'll make his return. We'll get back to Briggsy, you know, and all that stuff. And then we find out, and I'll let you read the quote once you find it there, but we find out that adventures are basically on hold indefinitely. There is no anticipation to return to that adventure cadence, which, when I asked yesterday on stream, was one of the most beloved things that they had done. Like, that cadence of story pushing forward each season was something people didn't like. The mysteries so much, some people loved them, but the adventures were consistently loved because it was pushing the story forward.
Yeah, and that was one of the whole points of like having captaincy, was we were going to be getting these unique mementos from these adventures that were going to help kind of tell the story of what was going to happen. Then we started to get promises about like how they were looking into getting adventurers brought back to the game so that people could experience the story. Because one of the biggest stories that we had, the Tall Tales with Captain Pendragon and Stitcher Jim, that was an adventure that got rounded out. That trilogy of Tall Tales ended with Seabound Soul and then Heart of Fire, and then we got an adventure that ended the story for Stitcher Jim. That character, those Tall Tales are in the game. Like, you can play those in Safer Seas, but there is zero resolution for everyone who has not actually played through the adventure for that, and there's nowhere for that to go. So I found the article. I'm just going to read the whole paragraph here.
Yeah, it's good.
Just to give people some context. So the Eurogame article says, one thing that definitely won't be returning, however, are Sea of Thieves monthly story-driven adventures, which sputtered out last June with one final installment. And despite Rare teasing their eventual return when we spoke last year, that's now no longer happening. A quote from Chapman says, "I think it was wonderful to move our story forwards, but narrative was very much leading those experiences, and the gameplay was feeling kind of second fiddle to it. So our new plan is to weave that narrative into the seasons themselves. like we did in earlier days, to actually make it part and parcel of the gameplay. I think we're quite good at weaving that. As part of that adjustment, players can expect the long teased return of Sea of Thieves' big bad, Captain Flameheart, in a future season. And Neate says the team is looking at regular new gameplay focused events on an ongoing basis in between seasons that are about really trying to drive interesting behavior and fun and buzz in the sandbox itself. On this, Chapman adds, one of the things season 11's new quest table gives us is you don't need to know the event is active. It's going to be showcased through that table. So doing things that maybe changes the feel of the sandbox for the weekend, that's much easier to do now. So I wanted to open it up to you after that. What were your kind of feelings on this?
So Sea of Thieves, in my experience, has had a history of setting a roadmap, setting an expectation on a schedule, executing that for a couple months, and then stopping out of nowhere. We saw it with the podcast. We saw it with the monthly updates. Then we saw it with seasons and how seasons were first 3 months. They were sticking to that well. It was nice. And then all of a sudden we got away from that. We had adventures and mysteries, and we had a cadence of when those were supposed to fall, and they were feeling good, and we were moving forward, and then we got away from that. And I don't feel that... I understand that it's a small development team, and I understand that they have, they set sometimes, I think, unrealistic timelines for themselves, but they get something right, and it feels like it's going right, and then we pivot to something. Like, I thought Adventures, maybe they could have spread them out a little bit more to give them a little bit more time and a little bit more time to cook. I thought Adventures were nailing it. Like, I really thought they were nailing it. And now we've pivoted away from them out of nowhere. And I thought players were enjoying them. Not all of them maybe hit home, but I thought the adventure system in that cadence was a win. And now we're pivoting away from it. And it sounds like to me we're weaving it in with the updates. That sounds like to me we're going years back onto a system that we used to have that didn't work. We were missing the monthly updates. We were missing the seasonal timelines. I feel like we're reverting back to something that didn't work. And that really concerns me. And especially when they say, Chapman specifically said that the sandbox felt neglected. Yeah, it felt neglected. Look at all the bugs and things that were reoccurring, but we were doing adventure. We were doing new content. We'll get to that eventually. We're doing mysteries. We're doing new content. We'll get to that eventually. But now in 2023, to your point, we haven't seen adventures for a while. We haven't seen mysteries for a while. Monkey Island is now several months in the past. To me, the bits of those sandbox that got hurt back then, they're still hurting. And though we've got some really cool features with the diving table and the UI changes, there's still critical pieces of that sandbox that broke back then at adventure that got neglected, that they're still broken today. So I wish they would pick something. They would stick to it, especially when it's working. And adventures were working.
Yeah. We received some of the coolest stuff I've ever seen in Sea of Thieves through the adventures. Real moments of like, wow, they really did that. I did not expect them to be able to do that in this, because we've never seen anything. And one of the things that Mike told me back in an interview was that to wait and see, because the world was going to feel far more alive. And what that ended up being was adventures.
Yes.
Adventures were the thing he was talking about. When I asked, were there things that were going to be happening in Sea of Thieves that was going to make the world feel more alive? Now, when I asked that question, I was thinking, I just want some NPCs to walk around, pick stuff up, move it, put it down somewhere else, have a routine, have a schedule, have different animals in the world, have animals in the ocean, stuff like that, stuff to kind of like flesh out the world, kind of what Skull and Bones does. Mm-hmm. Skull and Bones, I think, feels very alive.
Agreed.
You know, the towns are full of people. They're making noise. They're doing stuff, and you don't have to pay attention to it because it's all white noise, but it's there, and that makes a lot more of an impact than silence, which is exactly what you get in Sea of Thieves, unless you're with people.
Right.
And go ahead.
To your point there, and again, Skull and Bones, I think on some aspects has done it right. On other aspects, I have challenges with it, but on some aspects, I think it's done right. But I look at the world, how it changed with adventures, right? We had Golden Sands, you know, then we had new Golden Sands, and now we have, you know, Port Merrick. We have Port Merrick now, and you walk through Port Merrick and you're like, it's empty. It feels, there's cool stuff in there, the walls and the plants, and it's really nice to look, but it's like, does anyone live here? I mean, this looks like a city. It was designed as a city. And it's like, I mean, let's be honest, it was designed to be the Sea of Thieves Nassau, right? The pirate republic. And it feels empty. You walk into buildings, and sure, the tavern keeper's back there, but the rest of the tavern is empty. And you're 100% right. If they had a couple people, I'm going to say, partner with Mojang and figure out how to get villagers in there and just like, you know, pick something up and put it down, to your point, that would make Port Merrick feel alive. Someone carrying a box from the Order of Souls tent over to the dock and putting it down. You know, a little wince that goes over and picks up a box and then moves it over and puts it somewhere else. Just that little bit of movement would completely change the experience of walking around Port Merrick. 100%. Seeing it evolve from Golden Sands through the war to Port Merrick was brilliant, right? That was a brilliant experience that we got to see as players live with them flipping those switches that they now have in the game. But now that Port Merrick's there, it's just like, it looks cool, but it feels dead.
Yeah. And we see that too with, one of the things that came as a result of Monkey Island. Monkey Island is a perfect example of like what you can do with a town and have people in it that are voice acted,
right,
and feel alive.
Yeah,
you have these things in the game, and yes, they're siloed off as a tall tale. So you have a big server that can manage a lot more because there's not an entire world that you have to have on the server all working with different parts. You have one crew with just a small portion of land, and all the other resources on this server can be dedicated towards just people and just voice acting and just having them walk around and do stuff. And unfortunately, it's like, we're looking at a 2015 game that was released in 2018 that was for an older system that is still being supported on Xbox One. Yeah. It's still supported on Xbox One. The hardware, I've been told from Drew, is not the impact here. But at the same time, I'm noticing Sea of Thieves isn't on PlayStation 4.
Nope.
Little weird.
When do you think? Will they ever? Do you think Xbox? Here? Let me ask you this on that. That's great. Do you think Xbox, the big conglomerate Xbox, is saying you have to keep support on Xbox One, or do you think that's a rare choice? But do you think the future of Sea of Thieves, the way we would like to see it, you know, since hardware is not really the issue, do you think the future of Sea of Thieves, where it's that live, bustling world with maybe dolphins or whales or people in the towns, do you think they're going to have to cut the cord on that old hardware? And do you think Microsoft will allow it, or do you think Rare is holding back on that?
I don't genuinely know, because it feels like that they're right now, they're telling us that the hardware isn't the issue. Whether it's the server side or whether it's the actual Xbox One hardware, and it makes me wonder if it's not the issue, then what is the restriction? Where's the restriction on what you can and can't do if it's not hardware based? Because the alternative is that it's software based. So if software is the thing that's restricting it, then wouldn't hardware alleviate some of that.
Should.
And that's kind of what I'm wondering is I don't know that Sea of Thieves will ever not support Xbox One.
Mhm.
I think that this game will end up stalling out, and they will probably cease development on it and move on to Everwild before they let go of the Xbox One users. And I think that's because of the install base more than the hardware. I think that they are working hard to ensure that the install base for Xbox with Sea of Thieves is still maintaining that. And I think once servers or once Series X consoles double that of the sales of Xbox One, I think that's when we'll maybe start seeing them saying like, okay, we're gonna drop support. But even then, it feels like Sea of Thieves it feels like Rare is being a people pleaser right now.
Right.
And they are trying to ensure that they're not leaving behind Xbox One users, where I think that's a fallacy in the mentality, but I don't have the numbers to back that up. It's just a feeling. It's a gut instinct to think like, you guys are people pleasing the Xbox One players right now. It's harming the future of the game because you're unable to express what you want. But I don't know if that's because of a skill gap in the studio, a sense of hubris that they just, they want to make sure that they aren't leaving people behind. But it's a game that's cross play. It's cross progression. It's cross buy. I bought the Xbox One version. I play it on my Series X. I don't need the Xbox One anymore to be able to play that game. So I don't know if hardware is not the issue, then it's got to be software. And if it's software, then what's holding back the game from being able to do stuff like this?
Right. And the other thing that was mentioned in the news from Drew was that Safer Seas is going to be playable without a subscription, right? That was mentioned by him. So in my mind, okay, we want to move Sea of Thieves forward, whatever it is, Xbox One, maybe it's not the issue, software, wherever that issue is. But in my mind, if you don't need a subscription, this is your opportunity to start cutting ties with some of that older stuff. You can still play Sea of Thieves. You only get access to Safer Seas. It's not going to be, multiplayer, but you can still enjoy Sea of Thieves. You don't get the new stuff, right? You don't get the, this is an opportunity I see, but they did shift there where it's like, we do want to have everyone still play. You're just not going to be able to play the true experience of the game anymore, but you can still play.
I'm really curious about this change in particular, because this was from the Sea News video where Drew talked about they're removing the requirement for Game Pass Core and Game Pass Ultimate for solo play on Safer Seas. And to me, the reason why was there were a lot of people at the studio who were playing PlayStation, and they wanted to be able to play the game solo at home, test it, and be able to have that analytical data go back, or have that experience go back. But obviously they had to allow this somehow.
Yep.
And they had to give their devs the ability to do this. And if devs didn't have PlayStation Plus to be able to do multiplayer, they had to be able to still play the game. And I think that they found that if you play through Safer Seas, we can remove the requirement for Game Pass Core and Game Pass Ultimate.
You just put the giant fear of dread in me, because I didn't think about this. We talked earlier about PlayStation testing going on. Please tell me that they didn't just test in Safer Seas. because literally what you just said there put that dread that hadn't been in the back of my mind. You just put that in the front of my mind, like, oh, please tell me they're testing on PlayStation this past however many months has not just been on Safer Seas, because that is not going to show them what's going to happen.
Yeah, well, I think yes and no. I think internally they've probably been testing on PlayStation units. They've probably have like dev kits and stuff. So they've probably been playing on High Seas and Safer Seas on internally. externally outside of the studio, I would not be surprised if it's been just safer seas if that's what they want to test. But at the same time, I can't say. So I don't. They haven't told us, and they probably won't. But if I had to guess, it would probably be on high seas as well as safer seas. But I don't know. It's a weird thing to remove. But I think at the end of the day, it's also like, where can we take the barriers of entry and break those down so that we can literally try to get as many people to touch this game as possible?
Yep.
And I think that's one of the things, like, because you still have to buy the game. Like, you still have to buy Sea of Thieves at the end of the day.
Correct.
But at least if you do buy it and your Game Pass core lapses, you can still get access to the solo experience for safer seas. The thing that I don't understand about that is how, if safer seas still has commendations and achievements and gold and doubloons and ancient coins, if that all still connects up to their servers and we don't need Game Pass core for the saves as a result, are we really just paying a service for multiplayer that we really don't need to? And these antiquated services are just complete BS.
I mean, we've had multiplayer games for a very long time that don't require subscription services. So when honestly, when Xbox first introduced, because you could play multiplayer games on Xbox prior, like I think you were able to play some multiplayer games prior to them having some sort of pay for multiplayer, right? Like, was there or was it just LAN back in the day?
I think it was just LAN. I don't remember ever being able to play with other people across the internet until Xbox Live.
Yeah. I mean, on PC for sure, there has been multiplayer games that have not required a subscription. What I will say, and I know there's a lot of people out there, I've played, I started my online gaming experience way back with EverQuest in 1998 when I was beta testing it. That game required a subscription. And a lot of people say, why would you pay a monthly subscription to play a game you've already purchased? And I was young, and I'm like, well, first off, it's fun. That's why I'm playing it. But as I grew up, I learned servers cost a lot of money. And ultimately, that money is going to the server cost, but it's also going into a reoccurring fund for them to continue to develop the game. Because if you buy a game at $60, $70, eventually that funds dry up because people aren't going to buy your new game, right? So you have expansions to really infuse the money, and you've got that monthly subscription to pay for your ongoing development, maintenance, and also your server costs. So yeah, I mean, but to your point, maybe they're thinking not a lot of people are going to play that way, so we're okay with it. But if Microsoft all of a sudden said, "Oh, you don't need a subscription to play multiplayer games," I would be very, very concerned for their business model, because that would probably turn off a crap ton of money.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting decision. I'm glad that they're doing it, because I think it offers the opportunity for people who have purchased Sea of Thieves but maybe aren't subscribed right now to Game Pass Core because it's their secondary system, and they hear about the news about Sea of Thieves and what's been going on, and they want to jump back in. They can jump back into the solo experience for Safer Seas and not have to actually sign back up for Game Pass Core. I also think this is a great babysitter for kids. I kind of wish that they could do multiplayer in Safer Seas without Game Pass Core, because I think parents would love to buy a Series S for their kid and have the neighborhood kids have Series S's and just have a bunch of kids on a galleon and let them play in Safer Seas.
Agreed.
And just like that would be, I mean, that to me is far more value than what Safer Seas currently offers.
Yep.
If anything, just turn Safer Seas into a local co-op opportunity for like lands and stuff for kids to be able to link up together without having to Game Pass Core.
Right.
Dude, that's an easy win for me. I'll go spend $250 for a kid to be able to do that with his buddies.
Yeah, agreed. Like that would be something really cool for, with Extra Life and stuff we do at the hospital. We're always looking for opportunities to be able to bring the children who are kind of isolated in their rooms, to bring them together with other kids in the hospital who obviously they potentially can't be in the same room because of whatever condition they may have. But having opportunities to say, hey, this kid's in this room, this kid's in this room, let's give them both an Xbox and let them play Sea of Thieves together. Like, yeah, I would be 100% for that, just with the charity side of the world that I do with that. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I mistakenly thought this announcement was doing, was that it was allowing for safer seas multiplayer without Game Pass Core or Game Pass Ultimate. Unfortunately, it's just the solo experience. I really wish that there was a way that they could actually just open that up a little bit more. Just because, like, in my mind, I'm like, I think that would be cool. I think I would love for kids to be able to have a pirate experience in safer seas where it's just the kids, just in their own little pirate adventure. I mean, it's you can go outside and play pirate all you want, but there's nothing that feels as cool as getting on a ship in Sea of Thieves and sailing around, and not having to worry about other people messing with you. And to them, I'm sure the gold doesn't matter. I'm sure that the turn-in value doesn't have. It's going to be really cool when they get into Megalodon and Kraken fights and stuff like that. And I don't know. That was one of the things that I kind of took away from that. I wanted to see if we could circle back to a thing, because I'm looking at the article right now.
Yep.
And having adventures go away, they address this by saying that they're going to weave the narrative into the seasons themselves. I had two thoughts when I was reading through this, and one of the thoughts was, okay, we're going back to OG year one Sea of Thieves. We had the Shrouded we had the Hungering Deep, we had Cursed Sails, and we had Forsaken Shores. They're going back to the old school.
Yep.
And then I remembered that they said that they were going to tie this into seasons. And then I remembered how hard it was for them to maintain seasonal cadence when big features like this were getting like tied to seasons. And I'm like, maybe don't tie it to seasons.
Yeah.
Maybe we just have story happen, and we don't say, like, coming in season 12, the big bad, bad guys coming back for. It's like, I know that they need marketable points for seasons. Like, they have to have marketable points for seasons to sell a plunder pass to get people engaged with the seasons. But man, does it suck when I hear season 11 has been delayed by 3 weeks. And they're like, oh, just kidding. Or no, sorry. Season 10 has been, has 3 months and 3 weeks. Oh, just kidding. We're actually going to be launching season 11 3 weeks early. It's like, you guys built a buffer there. You didn't need it, but you didn't warn anyone who needed that extra time either.
Yep.
And the opposite side of that is things are not going well with testing internally. We're having to tack on an extra 4 weeks to season 12. Season 13 will now launch a month later. It's like, I don't like that. That doesn't feel good. Maybe we don't couple big things to seasons. Maybe we decouple those.
I really like, and I thought Sea of Thieves was going to go this route. I really did. How Destiny, now again, we haven't seen how they're doing it, and we really haven't seen how WoW's going to execute it. But this idea of a ongoing storyline that releases on whatever cadence whenever it's ready, it's not tied to seasons, and it's just like this epic story that you can play. Once it's out, you can play it whenever you want. So let's say, Adventure 1 comes out on this date, Adventure 2 comes out on this date, Adventure 3 comes out on this date, and then you got some buffer before the next one, and you can play all three in any order you want. WoW is probably going to be a little different than that with the War Within, but I really thought with Adventures, that was kind of the direction that Sea of Thieves was going for. I'm like, I can get behind that. I really like that. But bringing it back to the OG way of Sea of Thieves doing it, they couldn't execute the timelines back then. They're still struggling today without the adventures. Look at season 9, season 10. Now you're coupling that big thing into your point. I don't know how they're going to be able to execute on these timelines with quality. That's the big thing for me. If you say a timeline, stick to it, but be careful, because it's got to be quality. And that's, I think, where they start to run in to their issues.
Yeah. I feel like they've already stated what they think is going to be their cadence, or what they're trying to think of a good way to put this. The writing is on the wall of how they're going to stick to seasonal cadence, and that is decoupling adventure or removing adventures and mysteries.
Right.
They're getting rid of that pressure. They're getting rid of big features like captaincy, like hourglass, like guilds, like map table refreshes, and they're going back to sandbox items. Sandbox items are great. They are the lifeblood of the game because they change this. They change the meta. They are also very light when it comes to the weight of an update.
Yep.
And I'm really trying to sit here and say, like, okay, the seasons will be fine because they're focusing on sandbox, which means we're going to be getting new weapons, new types of weapons, or we're getting loadouts to clothing, or we're getting changes to harpoon customization. We're getting things that are going to enrich the gameplay aspect of it. But those aren't marquee features. And Rare in the past has shown that they have an addiction to marquee features.
Yep.
And honestly, like, what I want for them to do is to go very much back to year one. You've got 3 major updates for a year. When they hit, they hit. There's no locked in time frame that they need to hit, but they want to actually get those. The problem that I think Rare ran into with year one is they wanted to have something in between the big features to sustain players. And I think they've even talked about this, which I think is even more concerning because I'm seeing history repeat itself now.
Yep.
They're talking about how narrative is going to be woven into seasons. They're talking about how Flameheart is going to be returning in a future season. And they said that the new quest table is giving them the opportunity to showcase special weekends or things, events. And in my mind, I'm like, you guys are literally repeating 2018. and you're saying, okay, Captain Flameheart is going to be Curse Sales. And in between then, we're going to have Build Dread adventures every 2 weeks. And it's like, guys, I love you. I really love you. I really need you to be honest with yourselves about this, though. It's a dream, and I love it. You guys have to see this is history repeating itself, and you got 6 years of experience on how this works. So please, for the love of everything holy in Sea of Thieves, please know where your limitations lie. Do not couple Flameheart to just a season. Just make it a thing that happens in the game. Have community events, have Golden Glory weekends, have your monthly update for the Emporium, which brings in new cosmetics. Let us have the fun, random stuff during the week. Do not make Flameheart a marquee feature for a season, because I promise there will be delays.
Oh.
I promise you. I'm not a dev at the studio, and I promise you there will be delays.
What have we learned in history? Don't invade Russia during the winter. Yet it kept happening, right? It's like we've seen this before and we know what happened. So please explain to us how this time is going to be different. And in my mind, how it's different is you focus on your seasons with your little sandbox stuff. That's great. That's awesome. Because I can tell you this, you put John on Sea of Thieves News with what you give him a stinky sock and he'll sell it for you, right? That's all you have to do is like, John, here is a stinky sock. We've got nothing in the pipeline. Here is a sock. Sell the players on a sock. And that man will get you to put like 1,000 ancient coins on a sock. Like he's just that good. But like, Don't sit here and have him hype up Flameheart and hype up season, whatever the season's going to be, and then you miss because he's going to sell it. The players are going to buy into it, and then you miss. So have your sandbox stuff for your seasons. Sure, you might get a little bit of, oh, there's nothing new for this season. Oh, there's no new content, whatever. Have your little stuff, but put out the big content, decoupled, as you said, from the seasons, and put it out when it's ready. When it is ready. Because like I said, John will sell whatever you want him to sell, but then you have to execute.
I mean, he sold me on this. Like he sold me on the Athena messages in a bottle. So we're
cool.
We're jumping around here, I know. But we're going to be getting 6th anniversary messages in a bottle that are going to be Athena messages in a bottle. First time we've seen this in the game. Not a new concept in the slightest. So folks that are familiar with messages in a bottle, congratulations. You know exactly what this is going to be. It's got Athena tacked onto the front. You're going to get Athena loot.
Yep.
If you do 10 of them, you get a glass.
I don't remember its name, but it's a rapier and it looks so cool.
I think I wrote it down.
Yeah, I don't remember. I didn't write its name down because it was a very long, convoluted name, but it was something glass crystal rapier.
Tea glass.
Yeah, it looks so good.
It does look really good. It does look really fantastic. But it's going to go into the vault, and that's where it'll stay. I've already got my ferryman cutlass, so I'm good. Yeah, so if you complete 10 of these messages in a bottle, you'll be able to get the sea glass rapier as part of the anniversary edition from these Athena messages in a bottle. John sold me on the frickin' messages in a bottle because I'm like, well, that's a cool rapier, and I like Athena loot. I'm gonna go hunt down 10 of these during the March 20th through the 26th. That is going to be my mission for those 6 days. Is every single day I'm going to try and find 1 or 2 of these messages in a bottle to complete them so that I can go and get this glass rapier before the end of the anniversary update. So I know he can sell just about anything, but I know what Rare does as a studio, and if they want to be honest with themselves, they realistically need to just have Flameheart happen when Flameheart happens. We've waited this long. We're willing to wait longer. But don't promise that Flameheart's going to be season 14 and then have season 14 in a year and a half because insiders caught things and you listen to the feedback and you try to address it, but it's just taking longer. Or something else got mandated from Xbox that you couldn't anticipate, and it drew a delay. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. The to your point, if you wait on Flameheart, will we sit here? Well, what happened to Flameheart? What happened to Briggsy? What's happening, to X, Y, and Z? We will be okay with the wait. Sure, we'll complain. We'll talk about it. But if it releases and it is clean, it is fun, it is epic, and it's good, all those complaints we forget about, and it's going to be an amazing time. But if you push it, if you rush it, if you delay things, now where's Flameheart becomes, here we go again, another delay. Oh, more players leaving Sea of Thieves because the delay. Don't overpromise and underdeliver. Wait until it's fully baked and give us this brilliant, epic moment, because then all of the waiting and all of the another season with no new content is all thrown out the window, and we forget about it because we have this new shiny thing that's brilliant.
Yeah. What I do want for them to do is, with the preview event that's coming on March 20th, which is the 6th anniversary for Sea of Thieves, they are going to be announcing sandbox updates for season 12, 13, and 14. I think that this is really good for the game. I see this as a reason to invest as a PlayStation user, because we've seen new games launch on PlayStation, and those new games are live service games. Those new games also introduce a year's worth of content for that game to ensure that people who buy into this game are going to see support for at least a full year.
Yep.
That's what Sea of Thieves needs to do for this. It's 100% the reason why I think they're doing this. But I also want these sandbox updates to be fleshed out. The more fleshed out they have them, the more confident that they'll actually hit.
Yep.
And that's what I want. Like, if you're going to tell me, like, already, like, I understand, like, don't tell me anything until it's ready to go. Like, I understand that sentiment as a fan. Like, I don't want you to tell me something like clothing layouts are coming. Okay, when? I don't know. They're coming. I want to know if you're going to make these announcements for season 12, 13, and 14. Let me know, like, good detail on what these are going to be, to let me know that these are things that are probably actually going to happen, and that you have like a good idea on when they're actually going to happen.
Right. So I love roadmaps. I love them. I mean, I still to this day, I'm very attached to the development side of the company I work with or work for. And I love roadmaps. But I always am the one in the meeting when I see these glorious roadmaps that the executives are like, yes, this is going to be great. And, oh, that's awesome. I'm glad we're announcing that and this. And I'm the one in the room that says, this looks good. Can you hit it?
Yeah.
And of course, the answer is yes. But then I come back with, are you sure? Because last time X, Y, and Z. So I want to see their roadmap. But I want to make sure, give me enough detail to get me excited, but also make sure it is achievable in a 3-month window. If that is what your season is going to be, make sure what you have in there is achievable in a high level of quality, right? Don't give me half-baked. Don't give me, here's my roadmap and I've delayed it a week or 3 weeks. Oh, now we've delayed it 9 months. Give me what you're going to do that's achievable and that excites me.
Yeah. I think that they have a real opportunity to really give us something special. It's genuinely a reboot of the game. They've done everything that they possibly could to try and get this propped up for success. And showing what season 12 and season 13 and season 4 are going to bring with sandbox updates is going to really kind of capitalize on what I think a lot of Sea of Thieves fans feel right now, which is we do the same thing we have been doing. The only difference is that we have bars going up now as opposed to a year ago when we didn't have anything going up. And that's really exciting. But if you're going to talk about these things, I really feel strongly that if you're going to do it, make sure that you're doing it in a way that you understand. Like, because I don't know about you, but I don't want the devs to have to crunch for this stuff.
No,
but I also want them to be honest about the timelines that they're giving.
Yes.
And I feel like there's a disconnect because one of those two will always supersede the other. And historically, it's always been time. Time is the thing that they will ask forgiveness for when it comes to a delay.
Yep.
As opposed to crunching the devs.
I would rather have a update which is a little smaller with stuff. I'm not going to say content because different people have different ideas of content, but an update that is slightly smaller with stuff and on time and high quality than something that is promised, delayed, or even worse, broken or not polished. I would rather have a polished small gift than a massive gift that is already used, broken, and needs a lot of time to work, because there's already dev debt out there, right? From like we mentioned earlier, silent boarding, hit registration. We've got a long list of dev debt that's already there. There's only so much more dev debt that you're going to get before one of these seasons is going to be like, we can't do anything new and cool because we have all this dev debt to fix. So I would rather small bits with fixes over time that are executed and polished than big things that you have to delay or you haven't fully cooked.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to agree there. I wanted to check in with you about your list of stuff that you wanted to talk about, because I'm looking at mine and I think I'm good on a majority of it. I think there's only a couple like dates and announcements that I want to hit as far as like Twitch drops, perks, things like that.
Yep.
But were there items that you wanted to make sure got hit or touched on?
Well, I'll get you Twitch drops right now because I got that like literally right there. I'm looking at. So Twitch drops, you can correct me if I'm wrong, 15th through the 18th of March. And you get partnered only this time, by the way. It mentioned that it was partner streams, unfortunately, but it is what it is. You get the Eastern Winds Ruby flag, figurehead, wheel, and hull. That is going to be your Twitch drops from the 15th to the 18th of March. One thing I wanted to ask you about, because I know you're really big on the story, you're really big on the lore. How did you feel when they announced that Tall Tales can be played in any order now? You don't have to play it in order.
Yeah.
You can play them in any order. I was curious on your take, because for me, Tall Tales are nice. I don't really care what order that I play them in, because I've already played them in order.
Mm-hmm.
I already know the story. I've got the books. I've read the books. But I had several people reach out to me who are huge lore hounds, and they were very passionate about stating that Rare made the wrong decision here. So I'm anxious to hear what your thoughts are.
Yeah. So I didn't really address this in the past, unfortunately, just with the type of episodes we were doing. But I disagree with Mike on this. He's come out and stated that this is something that they think is fine. I don't. I think that, and especially given that the way that the Tall Tales are set up, I think that you should be able to play the Tall Tales in order. Like that is the cadence of the story that you should be progressing. I don't read chapters of a book in out of order and still feel like I get the full context of the story. I don't watch movies in different parts at different times to try and understand like what's going on with the film. This is the story of Sea of Thieves. The Tall Tales are the story of Sea of Thieves, whether you got the books or not. It's the only part of the game that focuses on lore that we have, because we don't have adventures anymore. A lot of that story is out. Mysteries were never really about the lore, except for the first one, which it's still in the game,
Right?
Not a Tall Tale,
Yep.
Still in the game, and Tall Tales effectively, that is the that's the hook for a lot of characters. The Pirates of the Caribbean Tall Tales were locked because they were a story. You were working through that story. So having those all unlocked for people, again, goes back to why I think they took Game Pass Core and Game Pass Ultimate away from the solo experience on Safer Seas. They are actively trying to knock down any walls, any barriers to entry for this game. And yes, you could get pulled along into a Tall Tale that you didn't have access to prior to this update, if I recall correctly. If you hadn't, someone could throw it down and you could jump into it, as far as I know.
Yep.
But to remove the gating process of it, it's numbered, and I would hope that people go through it in order, but it doesn't really. I don't jive with it. I think it was a bad choice, and it's their choice. They'll have to own it. But I think that it was something they didn't need to do. I don't see why they needed to do this. And I think that it would serve the story better to still have it gated by completion.
Yeah, and I was annoyed when, don't get me wrong, I know why Pirates of the Caribbean, when that came in, that story came in, they put it in front of Shores of Gold, the original story. I understand why they did that, because they wanted to feature it. But even if you played through Jack Sparrow and you played through the Pirates stories, there are characters in there that you have no idea their backstory because you haven't played Shores of Gold yet, right? The Gold Hoarder, what happened to him, and now he's back and he's a plant dude, right? Like, you don't know how he got there, right? Rose and George, they're there. Pendragon, those characters were in the Pirates thing, and you got no backstory to who they are and why the Champion of Souls is there and why that moment, in that final fight when Pendragon's boat comes up and the Black Pearl comes up, why people like you and I got goosebumps and were like emotional about that. Like there's a reason, and it's because of their story that you learned in Shores of Gold and Heart of Fire, Seabound Soul, those that we had already played through, why that moment was so emotional and why seeing George and Rose in the Sea of the Damned and seeing how they sailed away with Jack and all that stuff. There was a reason that was emotional, and there was a reason it was powerful, and it was because you knew who they were and you knew their story. And now that you can play them in any order, I don't think you get that same magic. You don't get that same emotion in that. And I think a better choice on that would be just reach in and say, we're going to keep them locked, but you know what we're going to remove? Play them 5 times in a row. That's what we're going to remove. Because though that would annoy some people, it would annoy me because I did them 5 times. I know you've done them 5 times. It would annoy me, but if you want to make them more accessible, remove that stupid lock on do them 5 times in a row. If you do it once and you don't 100% it, well, guess what? You're going to have to do it again, but at least you're not forced to do it 5 times. You could just solve it and be done.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't mind that as someone who has the gold curse. I know how painful doing those 5 times in a row was. I still know like pirates who haven't got them. They've been playing the game since the start of the game. They still haven't gotten their gold curse just because of it's something that's not like you've already done it. You've already experienced it. It's like trying to 100% a game on hard mode because there's a trophy for it. Like
right.
It's stupid. Like if you've played through the game, you don't want to have to go and play the game again just to get another trophy unless that's really what you're trying to shoot for. And if they want to remove that barrier to entry for the gold curse, it's whatever. I already have it. I have had it. I haven't used it. They changed it from what it originally was. So it's just it's a uniform curse now. So it doesn't even look as unique as it used to back in the day. So I mean, for me, it's just another thing that someone else can get. That if they want to get it, they can get it. If they want to get it easier, it's not gonna plus me on that one. But yeah, sometimes choices get made with rare, and I can't tell if it was someone got outvoted and Mike has to, or Mike got outvoted and Mike has to sell it now. But that sometimes is what it feels like. It feels like there was a choice that got made. He didn't get like full choice on the matter, or he got a vote on it, but he didn't win the vote. And as a result, now he has to be the one to be like, I will be the seller of this kind of thing.
And I felt like in the past, especially with sometimes, Mike said it himself that the sandbox played second fiddle sometimes to the adventures. And it felt like to me, and I've mentioned it before, love Mike, loved meeting him, talking to him. But I felt like sometimes he had a bit too much power in the direction of the game because he is a brilliant storyteller. And I feel like there's a shift happening at Rare of, okay, Mike, you're brilliant at your job. You're great at it, but we need to change our focus a little bit here. And I don't necessarily know, I don't know how the future is going to be, but that's kind of the feeling I'm kind of getting is like, okay, we need to take a shift here as a company, kind of put the story on hold a little bit, to focus on some of this other stuff. And I was curious because in that Eurogamer article, they said a new game health team is going to be created to ensure that bugs and core systems are not deprioritized for new content. Imagine yourself in that room with Shelly and Joe and Mike, and you're this new team leader, and I hope they get a strong individual that they're like, hey, we're going to push this Flameheart thing, or hey, we're going to push this new, shark event. And they're like, whoa, hold on. Silent boarding. food reg, like imagine having to be that person to stand up to these big personalities and be like, hold on, you hired me to make sure this stuff doesn't get DI priorities. Whoa. What about the shark spawn rate? Like, you know what I mean? Like that's going to be a tough position. But if the person is strong enough and good enough at their case, that head of that team could really make an impact on this future of this game.
Yeah. It reminds me, and this is going to be a really personal anecdote here, but I remember one of the things that stuck out to me when I was watching the movie World War Z with Brad Pitt.
Yep.
Was that there was a like a community or like I can't think of what it was, but the government of a specific country, I think it was like Jordan or something. I can't remember what it was, but
it was wasn't it Israel? Because they had the wall built.
Yes.
Yeah, it was Israel.
Yes. So Israel had built a wall when they had received an email about a potential for zombies.
Yep. And
the like of all the people on the committee that were like looking at this email, all of them said that it was no big deal. It wasn't a big deal. And it was like one dude's job to be the opposing, well, what if?
Was it the fifth man or the fifth man or the sixth man or something like that? But yeah, his job was no matter what came through and no matter how ridiculous it was, if everyone in the council said this is ridiculous or they were all unanimous in the decision, that person had to dissent. That was their job, was to always dissent.
Yeah. And I think it's funny that we talk about this because I think you're right. The article from Eurogamers is fantastic, and it says that, and beyond new stuff, Neate and Chapman are keen to stress that after a sometimes wobbly 2023, which I think is understating it,
yes.
Game health will be at an absolute priority for 2024. Quote, I think some of the community sentiment around things like bugs, around performance, pitching, hit registration is absolutely fair. So when we think of this year, we're really trying to hit as much as we can there. We want the sandbox to feel refreshed on a regular basis, and we want to really get the core of the health of the core experience back to that baseline and build from there. Historically, we've tried to spread that load across different parts of the team while still delivering new stuff. And sometimes it can get deprioritized. And we're actually forming an internal team specifically around game health to make sure that it never gets deprioritized in that way. Speaking completely honestly, it has in the past, and we want to be open with our community on that front because we get it, we hear it. Unfortunately, they don't actually say who that is, but
they didn't say who said that. Yeah,
I'm reading this. I'm going to say it was probably Chapman.
Yeah, that read like Chapman.
Yeah. I mean, you and I are talking about it. We've been talking for a couple hours now about it. It genuinely is true. Mm-hmm. And when they say we want to be open with our community on that front because we get it, we hear it. I'm going to say right now, you need to do better.
Yep.
Because right now, if you're saying this, I believe you, and I want to trust you. But being open is like Drew Stevens open.
Yeah.
Not podcast Joe and Mike open.
Yep.
Because I think you guys are great. If you're going to be open, be 2018 in front of the whiteboard open.
And my thing is there was a period of time where Joe Neate and Mike Chapman could open their mouth and I would be like, yep, that's how it's going to be. Yep, absolutely. Oh, that's great. Yep. Mm-hmm. That's where we're going. But after all these years, I still believe that they are the right people in those positions to lead this game forward. But now I'm at a point where you tell me rainbows and sunshine, and I look out and it's cloudy and I'm like, okay, show me. Don't just tell me, show me. Because that's where I'm at right now is you say the right things, you're making me excited, but now you have to execute. Now you have to show me.
I have seen a lot of tweets go out recently about the team excited about the 6th anniversary update and how they're saying like this is going to be really big.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of I feel like the team, they champion themselves really well.
Yes.
I think that they do a really good job of being as excited about the game as the community can be, which is great to see because it shows to me at least that they're still very passionate about the game as opposed to the opposite, which is them not caring about doing stuff anymore.
Right.
But at the same time, sometimes I feel like that can misrepresent the impact that the actual update will have.
Right.
And that's always in the back of my mind. So with a lot of what they're doing, with a lot of what they're saying, I like what they're saying. I'm hoping that they're being as truthful to themselves as I want them to be. Because if I'm looking at the game, I think that the game is in a really good state. That doesn't mean that the game doesn't have areas of improvement. With them saying that they're going to focus on the sandbox mostly, that tells me that they recognize that the PlayStation launch is as important as they're making it to be.
Yep.
Because if they were still on the same seasonal cadence with mysteries and adventures going into the PlayStation launch, I would be concerned that they don't see the flaws that the game has right now.
Yep.
And they even stated it: bugs, performance, hitching, hit registration, all things that have been things that we've been talking about on a regular basis. And that doesn't even take into account the cheating that's been going on, because the day after they announced this, I literally went sailing and hit a cheater.
Yep.
Someone just out in the open, invisible, one blundering us, taking control of our ship and being able to, they were able to get around and hack the game.
Yep.
So every time they talk about anti-cheat, it's going to drum up a new surge of people who are like, oh, they don't have anti-cheat in yet. Oh man, I can't wait to go in and mess with them.
Right.
And that person got banned within 8 hours, but it ruined the night.
Right. And that's the thing, that they have to make sure that PlayStation launches very crisp, because you have the first opportunity. And again, some of these players have probably played Sea of Thieves before, but there's going to be a lot out there. This is their first moment in Sea of Thieves. And if their first moment in Sea of Thieves is loot disappearing or a cheater popping on their ship invisible or immune to damage and one blundering you, you had your first ability to impress that player, and you've now lost them.
Yeah.
So they have to make sure this is crisp, because again, in the large scheme of things, cheating in Sea of Thieves is a fraction. It is so tiny. But to your point, that one moment, that one cheater who did get banned, you said, ruined your entire play session. That one moment. And that is one new player that might never come back to the game again if that first experience with them is that cheater.
Yeah. And I don't think that that's going to be just looking at like the anti-cheat and stuff. And I was talking to Caleb, who pointed a really good video of ex Blizzard dev who was part of the team for like working on anti-cheat for World of Warcraft, their Warden program. They came out and stated like they were not in support of kernel level anti-cheat because it's unnecessary.
It is.
And while I agree that it may be unnecessary, the perspective that he had was that he was on a game where they had 400 to 500 devs. They had the money and the time to be able to pull the analytics for what they were doing and build it into a program specifically designed around not needing it to be at a kernel level. We are looking to try and get an anti-cheat built and wrapped around Sea of Thieves within a year and a half's worth of time.
Correct.
And the easiest way to do that for a studio that is significantly smaller with fewer resources than a Blizzard is Epic's anti-cheat.
Yep.
And as Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, and the thing with that is when you're a small team and you're trying to execute in a fast time period, the best thing to do is look at the industry, what is out there in the industry, and see if that can be facilitated in your world. They look at Fortnite and they look at Apex Legends, 2 games which are first person / third person shooter, a lot of players, a lot of interactions, a lot of entities. Hey, that matches with what Sea of Thieves is, and they execute it at a relatively high level. Is the kernel anti-cheat the best thing? Probably not. But when we're talking about a small dev team who's already struggling on their code, they don't have time to go through and try to build this anti-cheat system in time for their big PlayStation launch. Let's look at what the industry has and let's invest in one that is proven to work. Is it the best out there? Probably not. But it's proven to work on 2 very massive games.
That was my take. 100%, hands down. I've never run into cheaters in Fortnite. I've never run into cheaters in Apex Legends. And all the time that I've played those games, it never once crossed my mind that someone was cheating in those games. I've definitely seen some pretty wild shots, but I can view those like kill cams are a thing, and I can see like what's been going on with stuff. Like at no point I'm like, that's sus. Like I've seen some sus stuff, and you can report it, but most of the time it's usually like they got the drop on me.
And you also have to keep in mind, Apex Legends and Fortnite, those are esports caliber games. Like, you can't be an esports caliber game without an anti-cheat that's proven to work. Because, like, you know, people are going to be like, well, you don't have a good anti-cheat. Like, these pros can come in here, whatever, cheat, or people can come up and cheat. Like, is it going to fix all the issues? Probably not. There are probably still cheaters in Fortnite and Apex, but they're very minimal. And again, this is an esports level quality anti-cheat. So I feel confident in this decision.
Yeah. If Fortnite can use it and it works well for them, and Epic are the ones that are maintaining that for Fortnite,
right? You know it's going to be maintained, and you know it's going to be good because that is a money printing game.
Yeah. Really happy to see, because of all the anti-cheats that are out there, honestly, I was hoping that it would be easy anti-cheat. Yep. That was the one that I was thinking, like, that's the one I've had the most experience with. That's the one that I think is because I've seen Battle Eye. I don't like Battle Eye. I'm going to be 100% honest. I think Battle Eye is a terrible anti-cheat. Whether it works or doesn't, it's just not a fluid anti-cheat. Like every time I boot up a game that has it, it's always like, hey, would you like to install Battle Eye? And I'm like, it was already installed. Why are you trying to install it again? What the hell is wrong with you? Just
let you know.
So I'm happy with anti-cheat because every time I boot up like Fortnite or something, it's like an easy anti-cheat popping up, and I'm like,
it's got the little its logo is the little purple bear, isn't it, or the blue bear? Isn't that what bear? Yeah, the blue bear. Yeah.
Random.
Yep. Blue bear, weird, 100%. I'm super excited to see the anti-cheat finally announced. And like I said, I think that is a fantastic approach from Sea of Thieves with the limited staff that they have. Obviously all the outstanding issues and things that they've got going on. So I think partnering with a company like Epic and Easy Anti-Cheat, I think is a fantastic idea. Will it solve everything? No. Is it maybe over the top? Sure. But I think this is the right move for the studio. So I'm so glad that I got the time to sit down with my buddy Captain Logan today. I hope you all enjoyed. I know it was a long one. I know that many of you have probably listened to this in multiple parts, and I appreciate it very, very, very much. Make sure, if you haven't done so already, please go over to twitch.tv/Davrim, hit that follow button so you can catch the Saturday streams when I'm playing Sea of Thieves. And also, please make sure you go over to youtube.com/@Pirate Talk Radio and give a like, subscribe, and leave a comment on there. Make sure to join the Discord, all that fun stuff, and check out the Patreon, patreon.com/DavrimTV. Until next time, guys, take care of yourselves and each other, and I'll see you next time on Pirate Talk Radio.